Hey everyone, this is Sean. Today we'll be furthering our implementation of our custom announcement bar by allowing our client to add more than one announcement bar by using what Shopify calls blocks. If you haven't already, go to my YouTube channel and watch part 1 of this YouTube tutorial because we'll be following along right where we left off in this video. Up until this point, we've only been able to create one announcement bar. But what if our client wants to have 2 or even 3 announcement bars and have them show on different pages? Here I've got a working example of a theme that has the functionality to add more than one announcement bar. So let's take a look. Here we can click Add Announcement, as many as we'd like actually. And this gives our client a bit more flexibility. So let's get started on how to create this. I'll link this file in the description below, but it goes into a bit more detail on the formatting and layout of all the settings we can include in our schema file. Basically, the only difference between the settings we've already added to our announcement bar and the block settings we're going to be adding is that the block settings are nested within a blocks attribute. So let's open up our custom announcement bar.liquid file we created in the last video. Let's go down to our schema section, and we'll see here we have our opening bracket for our settings and our closing bracket. Let's give ourselves a little bit of room below that bracket and above the settings. And we're going to add an attribute called blocks. Don't forget the quotation marks and the colon, and we're going to do an opening bracket here and a closing bracket here. We're also going to need to add an opening curly bracket below that and a curly bracket above there. Now if we go to save this, we're going to get an error, and it's actually going to tell us what we're missing. We're going to need a type and a name. So let's give our block, we'll give it a type of announcement. Don't forget your quotations here. And let's give it a name of announcement as well. Don't forget your commas. Save that, and we're all good. Let's preview what this looks like in our theme now. So if we go into our editor here, we'll see now that we have a drop down for our announcement bar, and we can add as many announcement bars as we like. There's a cool setting here within our blocks that we can also optionally add that I like to add sometimes so that we don't give our client too much customization because it might be overwhelming. So let's add a max blocks attribute and give that a value of, let's say, 4. I know the spacing is a bit weird here, so pretty it up just a little bit there. So let me refresh that theme editor. Let's go in and add our announcement bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll see here that it tells us that we've reached our maximum. You'll see here that we also don't have our announcement bar even showing up, so we have to also fix that. You've also probably by now noticed that Shopify's code editor is a bit lacking in terms of formatting. So if you're not using an editor on your desktop and you are editing directly into Shopify's code editor, if you want to pretty up how this looks, we can select our JSON here, copy that, and we can go to a JSON code beautifier. I've already pasted it in here, hit beautify, and just copy the formatting it spits out, and we can replace our text here, and it looks much more organized. If we go back and take a look at the document I linked earlier, we can see an example of a block that's looped over and over again to be displayed on the front end. In this case, we have our opening and closing of our div, and surrounding that we have a for loop, opening and closing, and we also have a case. So whenever the user selects the type of slide, it's going to be rendering this div. So let's copy this code here, the opening loop section. We're going to paste it above our custom announcement bar, and let's not forget the closing as well. We're going to put that below our style tag. And in our case, they had a block with a type of slide. In our case, though, we remember we named our block announcement with the type of announcement. So let's put that here, announcement there, and we'll save that. Now, it didn't throw any errors, but on the front end, nothing will show up. So we'll also have to go in and modify every spot we were rendering to the screen our previous section. Now, since we've wrapped everything in a block, we have to go in and find every case where we've called out section and renamed that to block. So here's one of them. We need to do block. I'm going to just copy the word block there. So everywhere it says section.settings, we need to name it to block.settings. So block.settings here, block.settings, and all of these other ones here. Block.settings. I think here's one up here, block.settings. And we shouldn't have any left over. Save that, and let's take a look at what that looks like. So let's take a look and add one announcement bar, two, and let's add a third one just to see. So on our first announcement bar, test 1, second announcement bar, test 2, and our third announcement bar, test 3. So if we go in and click into our first announcement bar and try to change the background color, what we'll notice is that nothing happens. But if we go into our third announcement bar, for example, we try to change the background color, we'll notice that it works. So why is that? If we go and take a look at our code, we'll notice that we're looping over not only our div, but also our style tags. And there's nothing unique about our style identifier to uniquely point to each div loop we're doing. So we need to create something that can keep track of how many times we're looping over our block. So to do that, we're going to create a variable to keep track of that count. So right above our opening loop, let's create a new variable. We're going to type in assign, and we're going to name our variable count, and we're going to set that equal to 0. We're going to call that on our class here by appending it here. So double curly brackets count, and double curly brackets to close it. Let's copy this here because I want that to be here as well on my style tags. So what's going to happen is when this is rendered, we're going to create a variable called count, and we're going to set that value of that variable to 0. When this is rendered to the screen, it's going to create a class called custom announcement bar -0, and I have my style tags pertaining to that class as well. But at the end of the first loop, I also want that count to increase. So what I'm going to do is increment that count as well. So I'm going to do, right before my closing of the loop, I'm going to assign the count, that same variable, and we're going to increase it by 1 by using the modifier plus and giving it the value of 1. So that way at the end of each loop, it's going to add 1 to our count variable. So let's save that. Let's refresh our theme. Add a couple announcement bars. We'll just leave the text the same. I'll change the background color for the first one to a red, and there we go, it's working here. Let's change the font color of this one to a bluish. And there we go. Now each style is pertaining to its specific announcement bar. So let's go ahead and click save on that theme because we're going to want to preview that in our browser. We'll click these 3 dots here and click preview, and it'll open a new tab. I'm using Chrome, and it may be a little different for your browser, but on Chrome, the keyboard shortcut for the developer tools is Control-Shift-C. Let's go ahead and then click on our announcement bar, and let's collapse this, and we'll see our classes that we created, custom announcement bar 0, 1, and 2. And remember, these 0, 1, and 2 are in thanks to that variable we created called count that's able to help us keep track of how many times we've gone through our loop. So that wraps up our custom announcement bar. Hopefully this helped introduce you to Shopify's liquid templating language. I've got quite a few more tutorials planned out, but leave your suggestions in the comments below, and I should be able to create tutorials for your suggestions as well. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.